Hi everyone, this is Apoorva, and we are back for 2025's final episode of People Who Ship. We are doing something a little different today. I personally love doing year-end reflections, and I've been going through all my year-end reviews on all my favorite apps, Spotify, YouTube, even LinkedIn. So I thought, why not do an AI year-end review here on People Who Ship? And who better to do it with than our very own chief AI scientist, the CEO and co-founder of Voyage AI, Tengyu Ma. Welcome to People Who Ship, Tengyu. I'm so excited to close out 2025 with you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, all right. Really excited for this episode. So let's jump right in, shall we? You had quite the year, huh? I'd be remiss if I didn't start the episode by asking you about the Voyage acquisition from earlier this year. So, can you tell me a little bit about your vision for Voyage AI when you started the company and how that has evolved in the last few months since you all joined forces with MongoDB?
Yeah, this is quite a year. A lot of things has happened. So I think we started the company around June 2023, and I think we really started to build the product around September. So I think the main reason why we started was that around I guess everyone knows that ChatGPT came around December 2022. So basically in early 2023, December 2022 was like 3 years ago, right? So basically 3 years ago, after ChatGPT, many people are talking about how to apply AI to enterprises. Because ChatGPT was a consumer-facing product, it's still a very consumer-focused product. And there were two technical plan or technical route. So one plan is that you do fine-tuning the large language models on the proprietary data. Another one is that you do RAG, so-called Retrieval-Augmented Generation. So both of these plans are trying to address the situation that this off-the-shelf large language model cannot have access to proprietary data of the enterprises. And you need to have a way to ingest all of this data into the model because the model cannot know them in advance because otherwise the data was leaked, right? So and fine tuning is one approach, and retrieval augmented generation is another approach. Back at that time, before ChatGPT came out, I think my team has done some research on fine tuning, and we found that it's actually technically pretty challenging. There's a bunch of like a cumbersome issues. I'm not saying like it doesn't apply to every situations, right? It does apply to some situations, but I at least at that point, and I still believe that retrieval augmented generation is much more applicable. It's much more modular, cost efficient, simple to implement, so on and so forth. And that's why we bet on retrieval augmented generation. But then I was thinking, retrieval augmented generation, there are still many different things I can do. I can build a platform that does retrieval augmented generation as a service, right? RAG as a service. I think actually there are quite a few companies doing that. But then I thought that I'm a researcher. I'm better at technical core technical challenges, but not necessarily enterprise sales or kind of like building kind of platforms or services. So that's why I thought that let's build the core techniques for retrieval augmented generation. So that's why we build these so-called embedding models, and also later re-rankers. These are the core components for making the retrieval augmented generation working better. So basically in the retrieval part where you have to search among a large corpus, the right documents that are relevant to the queries. So you use these two components called embedding models and re-rankers. These are the only two AI components that enables accurate search so that you can have high quality retrieval. And once you have high quality retrieval or search, you can give the most relevant documents to the large language model for generation. And it has been shown that, and people have known that, our high retrieval quality is actually the most important things for the end response quality. And that's why we go backward, we focus on retrieval, and then we focus on the component that makes the retrieval quality better, which are embeddings and re-rankers. And that's why we founded the company and we stay focused on these two components.
Amazing. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question as to why you went after embedding and re-rankers, but you answered that one as well. So has that vision evolved since you joined MongoDB, and how has it evolved?
I think we still have the same mission. In the Voyage AI team still has the same mission after we got acquired by MongoDB. The first priority for us is to make the embedding model and re-rankers the highest quality, and we offer them to all the customers, not necessarily only existing MongoDB customers, not necessarily existing Voyage AI customers, but any customers who may use this as APIs. But of course, we also have a bigger vision, not only just building these two components after we got acquired. So now the vision is that we have the core components, which are the highest quality, but also we combine this with existing components that MongoDB built, and MongoDB were very, very good at, right? They are vector database, which goes hands in hand with embedding models, because embedding models are just for some quick backgrounds. Embedding models are kind of like the modern version of the call numbers in the library. So you represent documents as a long list of numbers, but these are actually numerical numbers, floating point numbers, and instead of just 9 digits, so you have like thousands of numbers to represent one document, and that makes sure that using these representations you can retrieve the most relevant documents, and you can actually know not only just the topics, the authors, the dates of the document, but also all the details, so that you can retrieve the most relevant documents. So embedding models are trying to get this list of numbers for every document, which we call it vectors. Vector is a list of numbers. And the vector database is to store the vectors and use these vectors for search. And our bigger vision is that we put the best component, the best embedding models and best vector database together and have a bigger system. And we can offer all the components and also including the database to the AI developers or to all the customers, so that they have a one-stop solution that can be much more convenient and also has the highest quality as well.
I love that new joint vision that you have with MongoDB. So I think this was a great warm up for a lot of the questions I have in store for you. But this is an AI year in review episode after all. So I wanted to start with, what was your biggest AI highlight for 2025?
Yeah, I think 2025, I think the obvious answer would be that agents, right? So agent is really, really hot in 2025. I think in 2024, people were starting to talk about it, and 2025 is really the year for the agent. But I think I would like to say that what enables this is the reasoning models that are trained with RL that can think for a long time. So these are the so-called test time compute, where, as you can see, when you use ChatGPT or Gemini, now they are thinking for a while and then they give you the answer. And the thinking process gives a lot of compute power to the model, as opposed to just the answer right away, right? It's kind of like people also sometimes think for a while so that you can get a deeper insightful answers. And these models, of course, the starting point of these reasoning models was OpenAI 01, which was probably August 2024. But 2025 is really the year that everyone is developing better and better reasoning model. People started with kind of math and coding as the reasoning applications, and then gradually moved to even broader applications. Many other applications require also reasonings like legal, healthcare, so on and so forth. I think that's probably the biggest highlight. And of course, there are other things, like there are so many other kind of application areas where
So much happening.
So much happening, and every week you have some news, right? So we have better open source models, which I'm very excited about as well. I guess DeepSeek, Kun, Kimi, and also OpenAI released the open source models. I think there are some recent ones which are from NVIDIA just a few days ago. We'll see, what will happen next year.
Yeah, no, open source and reasoning. I love that. What's one AI company that you think is doing things right?
Yeah, I think it's probably many AI companies are doing things right. I think there are many different ways to do things right. Probably I would just say I think a shared trend or shared kind of commonality of the AI companies seems to be that they can move very, very fast. At Voyage AI, we are not necessarily the biggest AI companies for sure, right? So there are much bigger ones like OpenAI and Anthropic. But I think we learn from them in the sense that we try to move very fast and iterate very fast. And OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, all of these companies, they are moving, I think, very fast compared to 10 years ago, I think. And one of the enabler of this is that those people who are developing AIs are also using AI for their everyday work, and that's how they can be faster, right? So because if you think about it, every week any human maximally can work 120 hours. I think that's like absolutely almost the maximum upper bound. And compared to 40 hours, that's to only 3x. But if you can use AI to work for you, then maybe you can do 40 hours and still get the same amount of efficiency or the product or productivity compared to other people who have who work at 80 hours, right? And let alone some of these companies, actually the people, every working time for those people in those companies are like 80 hours a week and 80 hours a week. And then they also use AI to help them. And the same thing for MongoDB and Voyage AI. We encourage our people to use AI as much as possible. Of course, we use it reliably. And actually, when you understand AI a little bit, you know their weakness, you know their strength, and you know what can trust and what cannot trust a little bit better. Of course, you cannot never understand everything, but at least we can use the AI more efficiently and get more kind of this double acceleration to some degree.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I like that you just listed like the few things that companies need to do to, I guess, do things right, in a sense. All right, I have another one for you. What's the biggest moat according to you in AI right now?
Yeah, I think again, generically, I think many companies have different type of modes, right? So I guess there are so many different type of AI companies, right? So and different people can have different modes. I think for those kind of like companies that are more technical companies, which I'm more familiar with, right? So there are many other application companies as well, right? So for those more technical companies, I think obviously if you have the model yourself, is a big moat. Especially you can have the cutting edge model.
When you say technical, can you give me a few examples?
I guess I'm saying OpenAI, Anthropic, or
Okay.
companies who compete with them,
Mhm.
or people who are trying to extend the frontier of the AI, but as opposed to trying to apply AI to new areas, right? Just kind of like in some sense, like in every time, like when you have a new technology, some people is trying to extend the frontier of the technology, and some people is trying to use the current best technology for new areas that people couldn't have applied to. So for the more technical companies, I think having the model and the cutting edge model seems to be a moat, and it's very reliable moat. Of course, there are many other ways to get moats, but this seems to be a proven one for OpenAI, for Anthropic, for Google, right? So and for Voyage AI, we don't work on large language models, but for the embedding models or rankers we do have researchers. The company started with 5 researchers because we believe that this is the core strength and IP, and we believe that this is a strong moat. And then and we keep investing in research, and we keep growing and hiring more researchers and investing in training the model, and so that we can get the state of art best models. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty strong moat, even though there are many other ways to get moats.
So, are you saying talent is the biggest moat in AI right now?
I think that's definitely true, right? So talent correlates with your model capability. I think they are strongly correlated. I can see very rare cases where people have the strong talents but didn't really deliver good models, but that rarely happens because people are very smart. They fix problems one way or the other. So even if a company has a lot of talent people and they have some issues, there will be some self corrections automatically.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard a lot of things like compute data, but and I guess the answer was in a lot of companies investing a lot in good talent. But yeah, I think it's really refreshing to hear someone like you say that talent might be the biggest moat in AI right now. Very cool. All right, what's your favorite AI tool right now? Easy one.
Yeah, I think my favorite may not be the necessarily the right one for other people because I don't code that much. I do code a little bit. So when I code, I use Cloud Code. I actually use Cloud Code extension for tool use as well occasionally for booking hotels. Like ordering Amazon. Uh, that might be a very controversial one. I'm not sure everyone is ready to give cloud all of the controls of your computer from. But I think it's kind of like, if you use it kind of cautiously, I think it's still okay. It's pretty good. Of course, in work settings, I use Gemini and and ChatGPT. For ChatGPT, I use it mostly for personal stuff, and for Gemini, I use it more for work settings. I think sometimes the tool itself is obvious because there are just a few of these available. Sometimes I think it also depends on how you use the tools.
Yeah.
For example, these days, one of the ways for me to speed up efficiency is that I use audio to text first, so that I first speak about what I want to write down. And then actually, my real workflow is that I start with a very, very short outline, maybe something like just a bullet points with a few keywords so that I can remember. And then that's kind of like probably just a 3 or 4 lines. And then I speak for like 3 or 4 minutes. And then I use the audio to text to turn it into text. And then I ask the model to reorganize the text a little bit to a longer document. And then I spend another 5 minutes to edit and fix small issues and maybe add more colors. And that's still somewhat faster than I write everything from scratch.
Yeah, definitely. I should maybe steal that trick. Like I haven't done much with like audio in terms of note taking, but that makes a ton of sense. Kind of like how musicians do it. They'll just like record stuff and then go actually write songs. I love that.
Yeah, especially if you know what you are gonna write down. I think for audios, if you speak for 1 minute, most likely that 1 minute will turn into at least half page. I think sometimes even just a 1 page. So if you speak for like 5 minutes, it's gonna be like 3 or 4 pages.
Okay. Wait, okay, I'm gonna try that out. All right. This is a fun one. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your trust level with AI systems right now? And I'm guessing it's not a 10. I'm hoping it's not a 10. And what would it take to get it to 10?
I think it still also depends on what what kind of what kind of questions are they, right? So for example, when I use it for my personal life, where for example, suppose I need to go to somewhere for travel, I think my trust level is close to 10 because I don't really, also 10 means a slightly different there, right? Because what's wrong with that if like Gemini didn't give me the best possible optimal answer for whether a restaurant is good or not, right? It's probably okay. So I just blindly trust them. So for work settings, and I probably would say it's kind of 8 to 9, maybe I would say. I think also depends on how challenging the questions are, and also whether I can verify the question. So basically, in some sense, like I always try to verify in some sense, at least do some sanity check. In some sense, most of the cases when I use AI, I'm trying to improve the efficiency as opposed to do something that I cannot achieve myself with time. So basically, something like it takes me like maybe 5 minutes, but AI can spend 1 minute, or if it takes me like a 1 hour, and with AI I can spend 10 minutes. So in some sense, the trust is not necessarily needed even, because anyway, I'm verifying everything.
Yeah. So as long as it like just reduces time for you, it's okay if occasionally it gets it wrong since you are like that final verification loop. Okay. That makes
Right.
sense. Is
And
there
even if
Mhm.
like every time it gets something wrong, right? As long as like it takes me a very small amount of time to fix it, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that. I use it similarly. So I get that thought process. Okay. There's also been this narrative that one theme that I saw this year was a lot of publications saying long context windows are killing RAG. But you, on the other hand, have been presenting on the state of RAG at a lot of conferences. Even when we started this conversation, you spoke about how RAG is still an effective technique. So those listening who haven't attended your talks yet, what's your take on this thing?
Yeah. Maybe one thing I should say first is that long context is not only just this year. I think last year people started to talk about it. I think in 2023 there were some talks about long context as well, but it never takes off. And why? I think the fundamental reason is that long context is really inefficient. So I think there are several different levels of inefficiency, right? So there's one machine learning kind of side, which is like when you have long context, sometimes you miss the models kind of miss some of the important information in the middle. I think that's still somewhat a challenge, but I personally believe that can be fixed. Between better and better models, and this needle in the haystack problem will be fixed. However, even you fix that, right? So And even the long context is not quadratic in the compute to run the models on long context is not quadratic in the context window. I think it's actually not quadratic in most of cases anymore, because all of these fast attention models, like it's like a faster version of the attention. You have the sliding window, you have the gated linear attention, so on and so forth. All of this make it the compute cost becomes linear in the context window, right? Even if it's linear in the context window, it's still very expensive. If you compute how much compute you have to spend, if the context window is 1 billion tokens, you'll be surprised. There's something like on the order of like, I think like $100 or $1,000 or something like that, right? So and every time you have to spend that $100, let's say, right? It's crazy. If every query takes like even $10, it's very expensive. And let alone, and even you can cache those kind of like a compute. You have to store those cached results, the KV cache, in the GPU memory, or maybe somewhere. And storing those is also very expensive. Comparing storing the vectors sometimes in disk, sometimes in like CPU memory, they are much cheaper than storing the KV cache in the GPU memory. So in some sense, it's kind of like long context is kind of like the analogy for human of long context is kind of like every time you solve a question, you read the entire library. Obviously, it's not very kind of like efficient. And fine-tuning is kind of like you try to muscle memorize the whole library, right? Which is sometimes just infeasible, right? So there's certain capacity there. You cannot really memorize everything. And also it's very hard to unmemorize them, which makes the data governance issue a big issue. Like for example, suppose you want to erase some data, and how do you erase the information that the model learned before from the data is very challenging. But RAG is a very simple and modularized approach, right? It's kind of like, I also it's the most natural one if you make an analogy with humans again, right? So the analogous situation with human is like, if you need to solve a question, you first go to the library, you find a few books or maybe a few chapters that are relevant, and you read those chapters in detail, and then you try to use those chapters as references to solve your questions, right? And that's a very efficient way. You have this kind of hierarchical settings where you have the libraries which are in the disk, and then each time you retrieve something, you put it in the GPU memory or in your brain, and you solve it efficiently. So that's why I do believe that RAG is gonna be there forever. And long context, I think it will be probably useful for certain cases, but the number of applications for long context is probably much less than RAG.
When I saw that floating around, even I was like, and then I was reading papers like NoLima, context rot, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So
maybe one minor thing to mention is that also long context, it also depends on how long it is, right? I think like 1 million context is still very, very useful, right? But like 1 trillion context is kind of like probably way too long. so there is also kind of like a range about, exactly, it's also a quantitative issue, but not only just a binary issue.
how long is too long? Yeah, makes sense. There's also so many models, tools, and framework companies out there, but I think we are already seeing some monopolies emerging in every vertical, right? So, what do you think? I'm curious what you think the AI tooling landscape is going to look like in, say, I don't know, 3, 5 years.
Yeah, I think this is very hard to predict, especially in 3, 5 years. I think the biggest challenge for predicting is that whether there will be new technical paradigm that can change the landscape very easily, right? For example, we have seen the paradigm for pre-training is a big paradigm change, right? From the previous kind of like era of like machine learning, which is more about supervised learning for specific tasks, and then you switch to pre-training, and then OpenAI becomes the winner, right? Right. So before that, OpenAI was not that strong. Right. At least it's not like the number one, right, winner, right, before ChatGPT or before GPT-3. So and then last year, or like maybe 1.5 years ago, we had this kind of like reasoning models where you use RL and long COT, and that changes the landscape a little bit, maybe not that much, because most of these companies actually catch up with the new technology. If there's a completely new technology, then I think it will change the landscape a lot. Without a dramatically new technology, my guess, I don't know too much, but my guess is that the three for large language models, the three biggest companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic probably will be the winner. And there won't probably be like 100 model companies. It might be only like 3 to 5, I would guess. Yeah, and for some of the other models like embeddings, I hope we will be the number one. I think we are the number one right now. I think we'll try very hard to keep being the number one.
Awesome. To the other point you brought up, do you think we'll see a big paradigm shift in the next 3 to 5 year timeline?
Yeah, this is kind of unpredictable, right? Because it's a paradigm shift because it's like one new idea that just suddenly works, right? So it's very hard to predict. Yeah, so generally it's very hard to have paradigm shift. But in the AI space, I think probably because of the acceleration by using the AI as the tool, right? So because of that, you have this somehow like everything iterates so fast, and we see paradigm shifts so frequently, much more frequently than the old days, right? So before, like like the neural network only kind of like summer at some point, like maybe in 1980, 1990, some right, and then there's a winter for neural networks, and then the neural networks come back in 2015, 2013. So it was a much longer kind of like time scale, and now everything got speeded up.
That's a good point. Yeah, I keep wondering if we are going to see like something even bigger in the next few years. I have a feeling we might, but TBD. We'll do another episode in 2026 and find out. Yeah, I think on a similar note, right? Like about paradigm shifts, what are LLMs or AI applications missing today? So there's tool calling and reasoning, which have been huge unlocks for LLMs, but what are we missing and what needs to happen for that next big leap towards AGI or whatever we want to call it?
Yeah, I think related to I think what we are doing at MongoDB or Voyage AI, I think one of the missing part as we are trying to fix is that you need to take in the proprietary information and let the model deeply understand the proprietary information so that you can solve specific tasks for each of the enterprises. I think we have done a lot of great work to make the retrieval quality higher and higher and more intelligent, but there are still some headrooms there, and we can make also everything much more convenient and simpler so that you have a toolbox that you can just use quickly without thinking, and you just access all the information in the right way. So on the large language model side, I think I would guess, one aspect is that efficiency is probably still something we need to solve. For example, you can see that these days some of these thinking model are doing much better job. I can see in my daily life when I use AI for work. Oftentimes, if I'm not happy with the answer, then I have faced two options. One option is I'm going to fix the answer myself, which probably takes like 30 minutes, let's say, right? Another option is that I can choose the either the deep research or the thinking mode. Like in Gemini, you can choose deep research. In some of the other situations, when I do math with my university work, I use ChatGPT, and you can choose their thinking mode as well. So that thinking sometimes takes like 20 minutes. And that sometimes also fixes the problem. But it's very hard to imagine that, thinking for if every question requires like 20 minutes to think, I think the compute cost is going to be really big, and also it's not a great user experiences. So I think one of the question is how do you get the instant or maybe near instant kind of like answers, but the quality is as good as the deep thinking, like the thinking mode. Yeah, I think there are a lot of research on this as well, right? So I'm not surprised that it's going to be much better next year, but so far it still takes some time to wait for those answers.
Definitely. Cool. That makes sense. Okay, so we are quickly coming up on time. So I did want to do a fun little rapid fire with you, if that's okay, before we close this out. So I'm just going to say words or phrases, and you give me one word or a short phrase to describe them. First instinct, don't overthink. Let's go. DeepSeek R1.
The first open source reasoning models.
Okay. Voyage AI.
The best embeddings and re-rankers.
Nice. Coding agents.
Something you should try if you code.
Nice. Vibe coding.
Very useful for a small project.
Okay. MongoDB.
The best database, and also the AI powered database with search and retrieval.
Okay, AI benchmarks.
Very much needed and still somewhat challenging for agents.
Okay, and finally, AGI.
Uh, yeah, I think we are not very far.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for indulging me. Few more questions before we close this out. Let's do, how about 2026 predictions? So, if we were to do this same episode in 2026, what do you think would be the biggest story we talk about? Give me one bold, on the record prediction.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, a little bit in advance. I don't think I have a great answer. I think if I'm gonna be err on the safe side, I probably will predict that the thinking model will be much, much faster.
Okay.
And probably I'll predict that the video models will be much better.
Okay.
I would hope to see a lot of progress in robotics, but because some of this is not like open sourced, so it's hard for me to project the exact trajectory. I can only see to some degree the surface, to see other people's kind of videos and demos and papers. But I think, if I'm a little more aggressive, I would probably bet that there will be a pretty big improvement in robotics.
Okay. All right. I'll check back in with you in 2026, I guess. Cool. A few more before I let you go. For founders trying to figure out where to place their bets right now, what's your advice? What should they be paying attention to, and what do you think is noise?
I think it probably also depends on what's the strength of the founders themselves, right? So I think for people like me who are good at research, and probably not as good as kind of like commercialization and like more kind of like a business aspect, I think I would say probably stay on the technical side is safer, right? Generally speaking, but of course there are people who can learn the business much faster. I try to learn as much as possible as well. So this is just a generic suggestions, but there are outliers that, and in some sense, I think actually founding companies are really about finding the outliers. Like only one out of probably 100 companies can really succeed, and you have to be outliers at least in quite a number of dimensions. And in other dimensions, you don't make big mistakes. You are okay, or you are probably above average by a little bit. And in a few dimensions, you are really outliers, and your approach is innovative in many ways. Maybe you can innovate on the technology, you can innovate on the commercial kind of like a business model, you can innovate on maybe the distribution channel, you can innovate on the timing, many things. If I'm talking to the founder, I think find a few things that you are particularly good at and you can bite on the outliers, right? Nobody can believe in, right? So you are doing something that nobody feel like, everyone feels that this is crazy, right? And for the other dimensions, probably you should follow the conventional wisdom, because nobody can be good at everything, and also it's too risky to innovate on everything, right? So for other dimensions, follow the conventional wisdom and try to not make big mistakes. Yeah, I guess that's probably my generic advice.
It's not generic. I really like that. It was really honest, especially the first one where you said just play to your strengths. That seemed to be the theme of what you're saying. I think that's really solid, honest advice. So thank you so much for that. All right, last one for you. What are you most excited about working on going into 2026?
Obviously, I cannot talk about everything that we are working on. But I think generally we are still keeping on this mission that we get the best embeddings and re-rankers. But we are also getting many different types of embeddings and re-rankers, capturing different type of data, different type of applications, multimodality, maybe like a video, so on and so forth. And we are building bigger and bigger one-stop solutions so that it's easier for the users to use, and also having the right quality. Because sometimes the simple approach, the quality is not good. So we're going to deliver a simple approach, but also the model quality is also good. And also we allow some controllability so that if you really want to have advanced tweaking, you can also control our model in the right way to tweak it for your applications.
Awesome. Well, this was such a great episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. Really pleasure having you on People Who Ship. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
No, happy holidays.
Perfect. That's a great note to end on.